You don't need to pretend to be a doctor or a healer, but you do need to know your scope of practice. And also, too, not every doctor is a healer and not every healer is a doctor. Practicing medicine without a license is a felony in most states, and misleading patients is grounds for legal action and harm. Most people may not think they're doing anything wrong, but if they're using improper language or their methodology is more of Louis Pasteur's germ theory and not our terrain theory that we learn in holistic medicine, you can definitely get into a lot of trouble. In this week's version of Intro to Holistic Medicine, week 11, we will get into patient education. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Dr. Erica Steele. I'm a board certified naturopathic doctor. I hold 7 degrees in my field, all in the natural healthcare space. I like to say that I went to school so you don't have to. So first things first, let's define these distinctions. Let's define holistic medicine versus naturopathy versus integrative medicine versus alternative medicine versus functional medicine. I'll keep it straight. Don't worry. So holistic medicine, we look at all aspects of the self: mental, emotional, psychosocial, spiritual. We look at how all of the systems work together as a team. We have to look at the relationship that one aspect has to another. Whereas in naturopathy, we look at the same system. We look at the whole person. We look at prevention, but it's a specific system that was used by Dr. Benedict Lust when he came over here from Germany using neat water cure. So we use natural substances in both aspects, but holistic has a lot more spirituality attached to it, works more on the bioenergetic system, which is more of your energetic system, and taps in to that spiritual as well as ancestral components, where naturopathy doesn't so much. Integrative medicine has that integration between conventional as well as natural medicine. So it actually combines both. So a person with integrative medical training is going to need to have a solid understanding of both what they do in conventional medicine, even if they don't practice that, in addition to what we do in natural medicine. Alternative medicine is the least scientifically based practice. Alternative medicine literally is just looking for an alternative for a conventional drug. And so instead of taking a beta blocker, you would take cayenne pepper. Again, very little scientific data because we're not using subjective and objective data. If you remember from the first couple weeks, we talked about subjective data being what the patient tells us. We use questionnaires. In this class, we use the nutritional assessment questionnaire. And then we use objective analysis. So we're using our salivary pH levels as well as our heart rate. And so alternative medicine doesn't use any of that objective data. It literally just looks things up and then compares the two. And then lastly, functional medicine does use a lot of testing and integrates some, but it definitely doesn't have the spiritual component in it. It doesn't use as much of the therapeutic order that we use in naturopathy, and it does have an integrative approach, however, is very heavy on the laboratory testing. So recognize the difference between your particular healthcare practice. So even if you are licensed to diagnose and manage, if you are working outside of what the standards of care are for, let's say, a nurse or a medical doctor, you still can get in trouble because those standards are set. If let's say you're working with a patient and there's a set standard of care that does not include a natural approach and you are operating out of that, you are potentially putting your license at risk, just so that you're aware. Also, too, if you are not trained to diagnose and manage, just looking up things based off of, I know I see it a lot where people will say, oh, what do I do for this condition? Or what do I do for that condition? And then people are like, oh, here, take this herb or take this thing. That is very dangerous. The other day I saw somebody posting they wanted to get off of their Lexapro, right? Their anxiety medication. Now, that is a very delicate process of integrative medicine. We work with a patient to get their blood sugar stabilized first. We have to get their amino acids stabilized. We look at their organic acids. We look at their metabolism. There's so many different factors. And then we work with their conventional prescriber to begin to titrate that patient down. And so they may start here and then we'll slowly move them down as we are mimicking the mechanisms of action in that specific medication, in this case, the Lexapro. And so people were just throwing out, take lemon balm, take St. John's wort, water, take all of this. Incredibly dangerous, because not only do those herbs potentially interact with those medications, but also too, it may not be indicated. That patient has not been assessed. Maybe that patient is not a candidate to come off of that prescriptive medication. We have to be really, really careful in what we're advising. I've also seen things in our profession where people will actually do swabs on patient. I literally hit the roof when I saw the other day that there was a natural provider doing vaginal swabs on their patients. That is an absolute, we do not do any sort of invasive swabs. That is a conventional doctor. And so we're not trained in germ theory. Microbiology is not part of our practice. We focus on terrain theory. We know that all of those microbes, while they may be there, we know that it's the environment that is driving it. It is not specifically that pathogen. We don't go chase after the bugs. That is a diagnose and manage model. That is actually practicing medicine without a license. Instead, we coach patients to really discover what their foundational health is, what they need to do, and how they need to support their body's ability to heal itself. And so we must have transparency in our training. I am seeing so much going on these days where people are completely disregarding their scope of practice, meaning medical doctors who have zero training in functional medicine, zero training in natural medicine, zero training in holistic medicine, are seeing a financial opportunity by by saying, oh, okay, I practice a holistic lifestyle, so I must be qualified. And then they'll go out and they'll hang their shingle to be a holistic provider, etc. Patients don't realize that they're not trained. And so what happens is that patient is then subjected to thousands of dollars worth of lab testing, thousands of dollars worth of supplements, and many of which they don't need, because that particular provider has not been trained in the therapeutic order and the nuance of holistic and natural medicine. So definitely check, even if you have a medical doctor who is practicing, so somewhat of a natural approach, make sure they actually have training in that. I've seen it so much where they don't receive training, or the training that they receive is so minimal. They'll do a weekend course. And let me tell you, after doing this profession for so long, you cannot do a weekend course and be proficient. It just does not work. So there's a lot of ethical guidelines that we have to be aware of. Also, to recognize we still are in the medical monopoly. So the MD is considered God, and they have their superiority bias. However, they are of great harm, because if they are arrogant and believe that they already know, and natural medicine is just, it's not going to harm people, they actually are very wrong, because what they're doing is not practicing functional medicine, not practicing natural medicine. In fact, I was getting into a conversation back and forth with a provider who wanted information about gadolinium toxicity, which I've seen quite a bit in my practice. And so I said, hey, subjective, objective data, you're good, right? And she's like, no, I want a specific remedy. Well, the specific remedies to pull that out are extremely dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause harm to that patient. And so if you have a patient's subjective and objective data, it doesn't really matter what they have going on. I mean, it does, but you can follow that therapeutic order and you should be good. Having the nuanced information from the patient, backing that up with the objective analysis, eventually should lead you to what you need. Also, too, we see a lot of untrained health influencers, people that, are live a holistic lifestyle, or they're crunchy or whatever. And so because of that, they feel very emboldened. They've done a solid, 500 hours of YouTube education. And so now they believe that they are qualified to help people. So there's definitely a lot of things going on. And there's a lot of people calling themselves things that they're not, which is why I create these distinctions, understanding the difference between functional medicine, integrative medicine, holistic medicine, alternative medicine, naturopathy, because they're all different. They're all distinct. But so many times people will say, oh, I'm functional, I'm holistic. And let me tell you, taking a supplement is not holistic. So we want to make sure that our education actually matches our training. And so if we are coming out and saying we're a holistic health coach, that we need to have that training behind us so that our education is clear. The reason why I can provide the level of education that I do is because I went through and learned all these distinctions. I have my bachelor's is on alternative medicine. So I learned all about the practices of of alternative medicine. I then did in my second doctorate 2 years of just functional medicine, and then did a postdoc in functional medicine. So very distinct training specifically in functional medicine. And then I did another postdoc training in integrative medicine, again, deeper practice, so that I could work hand in hand with the allopathic community, and we weren't competing with each other. We were helping the patient. And then my holistic practice is really coming from my upbringing, really coming from my background, and really coming from my own personal journey of healing. And so there's a lot of nuance to this work. And also too, just because you have an education doesn't mean you're an authority. We want to protect our clients. We want to protect our brand. And more importantly, we want to protect our field. If you are not skilled or trained in something, it is okay to say, you know what, I'm going to refer you out. Remember, we're referring people, we're not replacing people. And we want to respect both our legal as well as our ethical boundaries. I know we all want to help people, but we must do it in an ethical way, especially moving forward. And I'm talking to everybody, not just the health influencers, MDs, DOs, NPs, everybody receive proper training. I could not hang my shingle out as a medical doctor, nor would I want to, but we have to make sure that we are not misrepresenting the public. We want to make sure that our education actually matches what our training is, and that we're projecting that out to the general public so that they can make an educated decision. So thank you so much for watching. Again, we're in week 11 of Intro to Holistic Medicine. It is a self-paced course, so you can feel free to join. It is a free course unless you're going to get a certification. You just click the link in the bio, scroll down, and enroll. I look forward to working with you further and teaching you how to live naturally.